Greetings and welcome to our 11th devlog. I am Mark, and in this video I will show you our efforts of the last 2 weeks to solve a few errors and bugs we've been dragging along, how we upgraded our system of interactions, equipment and animations to work together, and I will also talk a little about the game design for this and our next goals. All of this coming up next. But first, let me apologize for not uploading the devlog from last week. I know it is a crime as far as YouTube standards are concerned, but listen to me for just a moment so that at least I can share to you how I reached to that decision. I was actually quite advanced in the process of making that video. I had the script in English and Spanish, had already recorded the voiceover in Spanish, and was stitching the video clips together to then record myself in English as well. So let's say that of the 10 to 12 hours it takes me to make the devlog, I had more or less half of it done, because it takes me many hours to get the recording in English to come out more or less comprehensible. It was at this point or so that I thought, heck, this devlog is going to suck. We spent the whole week solving minor and annoying problems like correcting and editing the last animations and parkour actions, fixing the horizontal climbing animation to move at the correct speed, adding a slow rotation to the sound detection reaction, preventing creatures from stuttering like lock hands with each step, and Ellie took care of fixing the pig's ragdolls and correcting our main character rig to fix the deformed fingers. And finally, when I started working on the interaction to grab and carry pigs, I realized that it would require much more work and research, so that I wouldn't be able to present improvements of this mechanic that week. It was mostly a week of research and maintenance, and in that devlog I commented a little about these corrections, but focused more on the design criteria and the promise of feature mechanics and improvements. It really felt more like a filler video, just to cover the week gap of the channel, which I think is inevitable from time to time. At least for us with our current skills, it is difficult to make entertaining videos about such a slow and thorough process, especially in such a short period of 7 days. Needless to say, I was not enthusiastic at all about that devlog, and there were still many hours of work before finishing that filler content. You know what I was really excited about at the time? Continuing to work on the interaction system. I had to restudy several courses to understand our equipment and inventory logic again, but I was already starting to see how to get everything integrated in order to take our game to the next level. And that is the reason of why I made the decision. You know, we entered the game development because there is nothing that motivates us more in the world, and with these ambitious projects and such complicated processes, every gram of motivation is worth gold to us. And that is why I want to give everything I can to make it possible, to bring our game to fruition, and sometimes that could be to lighten the pressure of the weekly devlogs. Not only did it reduce the stress of the week quite a bit, I also get more excited to create these videos when we really have something considerable to show. Of course, if you have any suggestions or recommendations of what you would like to see in these videos, please share it with us in the comment section below, or also if you have an opinion about our work process in regards to YouTube or the game itself. Anyway, I will continue to keep the weekly devlogs, but know that if we ever fail to report the week, or if we oversimplify the video, it's not because we have distanced ourselves from the project, but on the contrary, we will surely be working hard to present you with even greater progress soon after. But speaking of progress, what did we work on this last week, and why was it so complicated? Unlike leaving a like or subscribing, which is quite simple and helps us with our goals and content enormously. Well, initially I expected to solve the interaction to carry objects with a boolean in our state machine, activating its animation layer in the states in which we could use it, but then I started to think about the possible scenarios. Should we be able to carry heavy objects while holding weapons or other tools? If we are already carrying something heavy, can we pick up other objects from the ground with our hands busy? If we want to have an animation layer to lift heavy objects, why not use an additional animation layers for different tools? This way we could hold heavy weapons such as the axe with both hands while running, or raise the left arm to handle a torch or candle if we wish. And then I understood that if we want this to work correctly, it would be a lot more complicated to implement, but at the same time it could offer a much more robust and immersive system than the one we have considered. I was a little worried about the idea of editing the inventory system, because it is a fairly complex system and I didn't even remember how all the parts work. But after restudying the course we used to create it, and rethinking the new scopes with this system, we got to work. Link to this course, to which we are not affiliated in any way, in the description of the video, in case you want to learn the proper way to make it, as well as the links to our social medias. We have decided on leaving only 2 slots to handle equipment, left hand and right hand, which really are 3 different slots if you consider items or weapons that are handled with both hands. Later I will fix the UI of this 3rd slot to overlay it on top of the other 2 hands. The general idea of the inventory system is to allow progress through weapons, clues, tools and resources, without giving way to grinding or farming. Our approach is to put immersion above mechanics and direct the player to make decisions that are not only moral and social, but also strategic with the system. A good example of this will be the inventory system in Resident Evil 1, that, with it being so limited, force you to put not only in order of priority the riddles or obstacles that the game presented to you, but also to consider the routes in which it will be more efficient to attack these challenges, since the mere fact of moving through the scenario presented a risk to our protagonist. And within these games, there were also circumstances that force you to rethink your strategy, such as the moment in Resident Evil 1 in which you're unable to run or shoot if you're carrying the volatile fuel, or also in Silent Hill 2, when to get on a service elevator, you need to leave all your belongings behind. These are the types of events that, even when they are small, can break the monotony of the game and renew it from time to time. For these reasons, and also because of the short duration of the game, is that not only the equipment space will be limited, but also the inventory space, which we will define properly when we start working on the missions and objectives, but that will probably be of around 6 slots for items, and that later we will represent with a shoulder bag that our character will carry by her side. What items will fit in this inventory bag? Definitely not the picks, or any heavy or bulky objects. Surely we can store items such as knives, stones, notes, keys, torches and lamps. But we might not be able to store large two-handed weapons, such as axes, spears, swords, among others. This will also be a good way to emphasize the prudent and stealthy approach. We do not want to force it, and we believe that the combat should always be an option, but it will be more reasonable that, with our protagonist being a little girl, we ought to look for alternative ways to solve our problems than to charge with heavy and cumbersome weapons to the battlefield constantly that hinder her movement and limit our options. So these were our challenges and goals: to expand our already confusing and extensive equipment and inventory system to consider 1- and 2-handed items. Now our character equips the tools automatically if at the time of picking them up you have the necessary hands free, and it also prevents you from picking up or lifting heavy objects, such as the picks, if you do not first store or drop what you have in your hands. We also expanded this logic to our parkour actions and our state machine to limit the interactions available depending on how many hands you have free, and also based on how many hands each action needs. At the moment you can perform all the maneuvers if you have at least one hand free, and if you have both hands occupied you can only perform the minor jumps. We also integrated the animation layers based on the equipable configuration, so that the pose of the character adapts to the item or tool in question, and we are considering whether to add the animations also to pick up objects from the floor, or to store or retrieve items from the inventory. We also integrated all of these into our UI system, so that in addition to indicating the available interactions, it also indicates which interactions are blocked or not meeting these requirements. We already have a way to indicate all of this in the description of the items, although we would like to know your opinion about if you think this will be intuitive and immersive or too overly complicated. We expanded our pickup and drop logic to also include any NPCs to be able to grab the pigs or really any creature we need. At the moment we can only carry them if they are alive, although I'm thinking of a couple of dynamics we may add if we also have the option to move their corpses. After all, this is going to get pretty dark quickly after the tutorial. And also, all of this works with a save and load system, so that we can move these resources between levels and scenes. It's kind of surreal to see so many mechanics working as one, and it certainly adds a lot of life to the game to have so many options for interactions. I can't wait to finish the rest of the code and see how it all works together. In summary, this was the work of the last 2 weeks. There are still many small details to refine. I want to add the option for the NPCs to swim to shore if they fall to the water or if they are thrown. Also add the option to save some values of the creatures we grab, like HP, resentment, aggressiveness, or if they are alive, when we grab them or drop them again, because at this moment when you release them, the system simply creates a new creature. And of course, we still need to add the mechanic to throw rocks or other distractions to our state machine with its own camera over the shoulder. And I think that with this, we should be finishing all the main mechanics, and we can start putting together the first mission of the game, which I still can't believe. But well, with this we conclude the devlog. I thank you very much for your consideration and for staying with us until the end of the video. I am Mark from Tryhard Studio. Until the next time, but not before, we wish you as always a lot of success in your projects and see you soon.